Hello everyone, and welcome back to the RWBY mod pack that I have created. I figured before we got too far into the series, I would do a mod showcase of the actual RWBY mod, which is pretty cool. And yeah, well, let's get started. So, here are some of the weapons that are in the game. This is nowhere near all of them. I have installed JEI. This shows pretty much all of the obtainable RWBY related items in the game. It actually adds tons of different new mobs, lots of weapons. Like, this is not even all of them in this chest here. I'll show the functionality of some of them, but not all of them. You can get scrap, which is a sort of crafting item from uncrafting weapons or from uncrafting weapon parts, which I'll show some of here. These top 8 are weapon pieces that are obtainable if you do things like kill Grimm, or I think you can trade for them, but I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I'm pretty sure you can only get the pieces from killing Grimm. But you can get scrap from uncrafting these pieces, or you can craft the full weapon out of these pieces. It's very self-explanatory. As long as you get all of the unique pieces of the weapon, you can craft it. I'll show the some of the recipes for these. Like, you can see, you can see this is the recipe for Crescent Rose. It's consists of 6 different pieces. They are all just shaped in the crafting grid like you'd expect the actual weapon to be shaped. It's pretty much the same story for every weapon. Some weapons have more pieces. It is fairly balanced, so like the weapons that are like less powerful by nature are generally well, the weapons that are less powerful by nature are generally more simple to craft. Other than Myrtanaster, Myrtanaster is a very interesting weapon. It has very low durability compared to all the other ones, but it is also capable of utilizing dust a lot better than some of these weapons, so it's very interesting. Yeah, you get the general idea with crafting these. Each gun uses certain types of magazines to be loaded. For instance, RWBY's rifle requires these sort of red-colored magazines. Actually, I have a stone slab and stone in my inventory. That's unnecessary. But yeah, RWBY's weapon requires these magazines. I can't remember if another one does, but I think so. Weiss's weapon actually requires dust to be loaded into the barrel. Actually, it doesn't need to be loaded into the barrel. The way that the weapons work is that the ammo has a certain durability and the weapon has a certain durability. And when you use dust for Weiss's weapon, it just consumes the dust. Dust, I believe, is stackable. Yeah, up to 64. So you can have a ton of ammo for Weiss's weapon, unlike some of these other weapons, which have a very limited magazine capacity, and magazines are not stackable. But in any case, Blake's weapon uses these pistol magazines. Stormflower, which is Ren's weapon, also uses the pistol magazines. It uses any of these. You can charge the magazines sort of with fire dust or like gravity dust, whatever dust is available at the time. Ember Celica, which is Yang's weapon, requires shotgun ammo, which is bandoliers, and Adam's weapon uses the same ammo as these as well. Kroshamor's and Milo and Akuo, which are Jean and Pyrrha's weapons, they don't require ammo. They're not, even though Pyrrha's weapon in the show has a ranged capability, there isn't actually a unique ammo set for Pyrrha's weapon as far as I am aware. Nora's weapon requires a unique type of ammo that's actually pretty expensive, but there's definitely a reason why it's pretty expensive, because Nora's weapon is a weapon of mass destruction, pretty much a rocket launcher. It's crazy. There's also these semblance coins. I'll get to semblances in a sec, but these are all of the new sort of Grimm related and also not Grimm related spawn eggs. All of these are hostile spawn eggs, the ones that I have up here. Grimm Amalgam is a weapon, not a weapon. an item that is dropped by Grimm when you kill them. They have a lot of Grimm implemented via the mod, but I think only certain Grimm naturally spawn. I haven't seen a whole lot of certain variants naturally spawning, but maybe I haven't gone to enough biomes, who knows. But we got the Beowulf, the Ursa, Borbatus, Goliath, Deathstalker, pretty much all of them from the show. And then a very unique one is the RWBY. You can actually summon it in survival mode. It is a boss mob. You summon it via this item, and I'll demonstrate here. It is very large and very powerful. This is the Grimm from the show that is the giant knight that Weiss had to fight in the White trailer. And there's sort of like a summoning animation, and then it plays a dramatic sound, and then poof, there he is. And he has a lot of health, 200 hearts. I think that's as much as the Wither. He is, yeah, and he's also a, like, I'm pretty sure his reach is very far. This is definitely a boss mob for the ages. From what I've seen, most of the RWBY mobs are recommended to be fought in sort of a ranged capacity rather than a melee capacity, because a lot of them have very high melee strength. Especially this guy. I'm going to use Crescent Rose to take him out real quick. It does 16 attack damage, which is a lot more than vanilla weapons. And even just with Crescent Rose, in creative mode, you can see how long it is taking to kill this guy. His health is slowly being depleted by this weapon that does like twice the default damage of a diamond sword. And as you can see, he dropped a Grimm Amalgam. This is used to craft certain things and stuff like that. You can actually obtain his sword if you, it's sort of an RNG thing, but you can actually obtain the RWBY's sword in survival by killing him, and depending on whether or not it drops, you'll get the sword. I'll summon another one. I'll see if I can get the sword out of this. But yeah, the model is actually really cool. I like how they've put this together. And the sword is flippin' huge, just like it is in the show. Doot, doot, doot. Did he drop the sword? No, he did not. But I think I might... Do I have the sword stored here? I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't have the sword stored in here, but believe me when I say he does drop the sword. I have tested that before. So I'll just put this back. There's also the Atlas Knight, which is an item that, well, a mob that can be summoned in survival as well. It just serves sort of as a protector. It has a good amount of health, and if you attack it, despite the fact that you summoned it, I think it will attack you back. So pretty much just, it's like an iron golem. Just leave it alone, and it'll kill stuff for you. Okay, these are the only two that are summonable in survival. Well, actually, that's not true, because Weiss's Semblance allows you to summon some Grimm as well. The summoned RWBY is actually a lot smaller, like it is in the show. And it has half as much health as the main one, but you can summon it with Weiss's Semblance, and it'll be your companion, sort of. Very cool. I think the summoned things behave similarly to the Atlas Knight in the sense that you shouldn't try to kill them. Unlike the Atlas Knight or anything else, it's not actually going to drop anything. Any of these summoned mobs do not drop anything. I don't like that it's night. I'm going to set it to daytime. But yeah, like we can see some of the summoned or summonable mobs here. That's a Borbatus. Most of these have shown up in the show. Ursa, I'll just demonstrate a few. Yep, and Ursa actually will spawn naturally in the world. This is basically, they use the same model as the Grimm in the world, but they have a kind of whitish color to them like this, as you can see. And lastly, let's do the summon Beowulf. And it makes the dog sound when it dies. these are all peaceful mobs. We'll encounter them later. I'll just show a few of the Grimm that are in the game. Also, Forever Fall biome is added via this mod. So if you like a unique biome with a bunch of red trees, then boy, we got something for you. I don't know if there's anything particularly unique about the rule set of this biome other than the fact that a lot of Ursa naturally spawn in this one. Yep. Ursa Grimm are particularly calm here. If you saw the survival series, you know that I ran from them right as I started. Okay, I'll demonstrate the semblances in a bit. But yeah, you get the idea. They have a ton of the Grimm here. I don't think I'm going to demonstrate all of them. I encourage people to download the mod for themselves just so they can see. I'll demonstrate a few of the functionalities of these weapons though. So I'll grab a normal magazine of ammo, and as you can see, Crescent Rose will fire it. And it, hoo boy, that's loud. But it does actually make the noise from the show, which is really cool. And if it's in this sort of scythe form, it'll just kind of fire without any recoil. But if you transform it by shift right clicking, then it'll transform into its gun form and it will have recoil. And as you know from the show, the guns have insane recoil. Like, they have enough to push you pretty decent distance. And this is actually a viable method of escaping Grimm, so you can kind of just hop across the landscape like this. It does a good amount of damage. I don't know exactly how much the range does, but I think it varies. Let's test it on the Ursa that I found over here. You can see that this one is at full health. If I fire this, boom, 10. Okay, it does seem to do 10 damage ranged, which is actually not bad at all. Like, that's more than a bow. That's a good amount more than a bow. Yep. And certain cartridges, if crafted with certain dust variants, have different effects. The gravity magazine, as you might imagine, it applies a very similar effect to what shulkers apply to you in vanilla. I'll just demonstrate it on this guy. Yep, starts floating up. And that's actually a pretty good method of fighting them, because you can continue to shoot them from a distance and they just kind of keep floating up in a nice, predictable path. Or they get stuck on a tree. And they can also die of fall damage, and then you can collect their stuff. But yeah, the gravity magazine is pretty fun to fool around with. Unfortunately, I think gravity ore is one of the rarest types of dust, I think. I don't think I've naturally encountered any. But yeah, there's 7 actually different types of ores that are added by this mod. There's gravity dust, there's fire dust, wind dust, water dust, lightning dust, and ice dust. And you might see that this is impure dust. This isn't actually elemental dust, but it is dust. And mostly the impure dust ore is used to craft things like ammo, I think some other things. But yeah, pretty much all of these are very useful to have, and almost essential actually if you want to progress in the RWBY mod. So mining is definitely very much a good port of this mod, because Professor Port. But it's a good part of this mod. And as you can see, we got some naturally spawning ores here, impure dust. And there's some over here. This is wind dust, more impure dust, more lightning dust. Lightning dust is pretty powerful. I think it has the highest damage modifier. I can't remember if that's true or not, but yeah. Different cartridges will have different effects. As you can imagine, the fire magazines will set mobs on fire, or even blocks on fire. Yep. The lightning magazine, I think, applies a potion effect of slowness to mobs, but you can double check on that by getting downloading the mod. Yeah, we have Gamble Shroud, which is Blake's weapon. Let's demonstrate that real quick. Each weapon has generally each weapon has 2 toggleable states. Blake's weapon goes from sort of like a sword state, where it does 14 damage, 1.6 attack speed, to a sort of gun mode, where it will fire the ammo, and it doesn't do any melee damage when it's in the gun form. And then we got Ember Celica. Well, actually, I'll demonstrate Blake's weapon, and then I'll demonstrate Yang's weapon. Ice Magazine is a very similar effect to the Lightning Magazine, which I think is a slowness effect. Unlike Ruby's weapon, which can be fired in both the scythe form and the gun form, Blake's weapon can only be fired in the gun form. Anyway, you get the general idea of that. I'll put the magazine back here. Ember Celica, the bandoliers actually behave a little bit differently than the other ones. Also, it does go in priority from first in your inventory to last in your inventory as far as ammo is concerned, so it'll fire these first, then these, then these. And if there's one in your offhand, it'll prioritize the one in the offhand. The normal, it'll just be a lot of damage and a fire. There's a lot of recoil on this, and the recoil is not toggleable. You can toggle the arm to an actual metal arm like Yang has in the show, or at least that Yang has in the show in volumes later than Volume 3. You get the general idea. It will still fire in the sort of gut, like the hand mode, but I think I would prefer it in the normal mode. The hand mode is a little strange looking. It's just kind of odd to have a hand in Minecraft. Then we got the fire bandolier, which, as you can imagine, it sets fire to mobs and blocks, just like the other cartridge. But then we have the flare bandolier, and this one's the most fun because it'll blow up blocks. Wait. Boom. Or at least I think it'll... Well, it's actually, I guess, I stand corrected on the... Oh no, it's the blast resistance of the stone is preventing it from being destroyed. But it'll destroy, like, dirt blocks. So it has a certain amount of blast power. It's not as much as TNT. But yeah, it's real fun to just kind of excavate dirt hillsides with this. But it does do a ton of damage. It's more of an AoE damage type of thing for the flare. Okay, and those are the 3 types of ammo that these shotgun type weapons use. As I mentioned, Adam's weapon uses the shotgun ammo as well. Okay, and then on to John and Pyrrha's weapons. Now these are interesting because if you have 2, and one is in the offhand, it'll actually transform into the shield. And it functions as a shield as well. Pretty cool. And the detail on that is surprising for a Minecraft mod as well. Pretty cool. But yeah, now I'm John. And as you noticed, I have an Ozpin skin, so this is even more appropriate. Anyway, we'll put Crochamores back in there and get rid of this extra one. And if you duplicate Pyrrha's weapon, it is the same story. Pyrrha's weapon does have 2 states, although they don't seem to have any actual effect on any of these stats or anything relating to the gun. It doesn't have a gun mode. You can't fire anything. But yeah, it kind of extends and then it like unextends. And if you have one in the offhand, very similar to John's weapon, you'll also have Pyrrha's shield. Pretty cool. Anyway, on to the other weapons. I think you'll like the next one. Stormflower. Now, just to be appropriate, we'll have 2 in our hands. Grab a magazine here. And you fire at a pretty good rate. Very high rate of fire ranged. Let's just kill the sheep very, very quickly. But yeah, Stormflower, very fun. It does take a ton of weapon pieces, though. I think it has the most out of any of the weapons. And then, here's the real fun one. Nora's Hammer. This thing is a beast. Let's grab the grenades. Okay, and as you can see, this thing does 16 attack damage, which is as much as Ruby's weapon, but it also has knockback 2, which I think is very appropriate considering Nora likes to really slam things. And then there's also grenades. And if you transform from hammer mode, which has the knockback 2 effect, to the gun mode, then you have a freaking rocket launcher. And this one actually has enough blast power to make it through stone. And it is very powerful. To be balanced, you run out of ammo pretty fast, and the ammo is pretty expensive. But it's very fun just to do this. You boom. To have a decently aimable, pretty much TNT cannon. Very cool. Anyway, onwards to some other things. I shall now explain Weiss's weapon, which is slightly more complicated. Basically, you have it in your inventory. You have the dust in your inventory that you prefer. It is also similar to the ammo in that it goes from left to right, and if it's in the offhand, it will prioritize the offhand over everything else. Gravity dust will levitate mobs within its area of effect. It's a short effect. Basically, you get free lingering potions from this. These are essentially lingering potions that are deployable via the Myrtenaster weapon, which is actually really cool. It's one of the cheapest, well, I mean, without going to the end, this is probably the only way you can obtain lingering potions in your survival play. Gravity dust is fun. It's just if you want to levitate mobs. It's not really the most useful, I think, out of all the dust. Wind dust is actually a buff to yourself. You go faster and you can jump higher. And because I have my FOV turned up, this is really kind of looking trippy, but if your FOV was lower, this would be a little less trippy looking, and basically it gives you speed and jump boost 4. I think the speed effect is a lot higher than the speed 2, so it's very worth doing. It's a good buff to yourself, and you kind of get like a high jump capacity and ability. That's the wind dust. Ice dust. This will slow down, I think, mobs in its... well, if you fire it at them. Similar to the other ones. Oops. Water dust. This will also apply a buff to yourself, I think. Wait. Yeah, it's absorption 3. And this one's not a lingering effect. You have to kind of just throw it at your feet. But yeah, absorption 3, throw it at your feet. It'll just make you a little tankier to take on some enemies for a few seconds. It is pretty practical. Absorption 3 is a very good level of absorption. Fire dust, as you can imagine, sets things on fire. Yep, and blocks as well, similar to the other ones. And that's pretty self-explanatory. Lightning dust does, I think, increased damage and sort of stuns enemies a bit, so I think that might be like a slowness effect, but it lasts a shorter amount of time than the ice. I'm not exactly sure what the difference in the stats is, but yeah, that's how Weiss's weapon works. It doesn't have 2 states, but you can right-click and you do a sort of dash forward, the same way you do in like a fencing sort of thing, which is really cool, because I believe this does not use up weapon durability, so you can essentially use it as a sort of speed potion without any consequences. Really cool if you actually manage to craft Weiss's weapon. Unfortunately, it has the lowest durability out of any of the weapons. Like, significantly lower. This one's 384, this one is 2,500. This one's also 2,500, and this one's also 2,500. Most of them are 2,500, except Myrtenaster. But this still has more durability than a diamond sword, I believe. I won't explain too much about the other ones. A lot of these are a little odd. This is Coco's handbag. Does a lot of damage and is a minigun, so... excuse me for a sec. I thought I was going to sneeze. But it is a minigun, does a ton of damage, and... ooh boy, is that loud. That is very loud. These are, I think, only available via trade, and you have to pretty much really grind to get them. Velvet's camera will transform into pretty much every single weapon, and it will have its functionality. If you do the shift right-click, it'll swap between weapons, and if you just right-click, it'll use the ranged functionality of the weapons. Same way as the other ones work. yeah, it cycles through quite a quite a bit of them. Brr. Oh yeah, and you can actually use Clipper's handbag too. Man, that is really loud. I'm pretty sure whenever you swap it uses durability, and whenever you use the melee damage it uses durability, and it has less than, it has about half of the rest of these. Yatsuhashi's sword does the most damage, I think, out of any of the RWBY weapons, but it's just a sword. It's just a cool sword. Does a lot of damage. Ryubang and Jingubang, these are Sun's weapons. It's a staff normally, and then you can kind of transform it into a... I can't remember if the ammo works on this one. Let's see. I don't think it does. Maybe the shotgun? Oh, yeah, the shotgun ammo. Okay, so this one also uses the shotgun ammo. This one's Neptune's gun. Scarlet's paired weapons. You get the idea. There's a lot of them. This one's also Roman's weapon. It'll kind of transform to a sort of scoped gun mode, which is kind of cool. I think does it use the shotgun? Yeah, it does. Oh, jeez. Yeah, the flare would also... This one has a very high range, so you can go very far with this. Very high speed of fire. Decent amount of melee damage, too. We got Raven Sword. We got... There's just all sorts of stuff. They do actually have the Volume 6 weapons, too, here. So we have Maria Calavera's weapon, which is Life and Death. It'll swap between a single scythe mode to a double scythe mode and a sort of cane mode. It's pretty cool. We have Ozma Staff, that's also Volume 6. There's all sorts of fun stuff in here. Junior's Bat, for some reason, I don't know if this is obtainable in Survival, but it doesn't seem to require ammo at all. And I don't know if that's intentional, because I feel like it isn't. But anyway, moving right along. There's Emerald's gun. Yeah, you get the idea. Cinder's sword is actually pretty cool. It transforms from a sword to a bow. We got Winter's sword here. There's all sorts of fun stuff. Anyway, let's go over these semblances, because I feel like that's a pretty appropriate thing to do. Basically, you trade for them. I'll bring the semblance coins with me so we can demonstrate more clearly. Also, there's Summer's Grave. I don't think this is a craftable item, but it is a block that is added by this mod. So, if just for like roleplay and stuff, I think you can have this block if you want to. I'll take all these semblance coins with me. Gotta put them in order. Okay. And there's 2 naturally occurring structures that are added by this mod, and also you can see that there's some Grimm around these parts. This one's a Mutant Deathstalker. Definitely don't want to fight these too early. They have 150 health. I was fooling around with that one earlier, so I think it's taken some damage. There's also this Queen Lancer here. Does a very good amount of damage. This one actually has as much health as the Armageddon, so I would consider that a boss, or at least a mini-boss. We got some sheep around here, but this one is the Crowbar. This is a naturally occurring structure. It has 2 NPCs in it. One of them is the Black Market, which is a White Fang member. He will sell you things like Raven's Mask, the White Fang Mask, and he'll sell you these even though they are craftable, so you don't need them. He'll sell you a wallet, which will hold the different types of lien. The semblance coins are particularly expensive. This one's 5,000 lien. It's Ruby's semblance. I think they're all at the same price. Weiss's semblance, Blake's semblance. These are the way that you obtain them in survival is by trading. This guy will sell food and drinks. Torch Quick energy drink. That's a reference to a Chibi episode. There's hot chocolate. People like grape soda. Strawberry Sunrise, which is a reference to the Yellow trailer. coconut milk, a flask, which is Crow's flask, pretty expensive. It goes from least expensive to most expensive, at least with this guy. Coffee thermos, reference to oobleck, sake, you get the idea. And in these naturally occurring structures, I don't know if he'll get mad at you in survival, but there is naturally occurring sort of food items in this back sort of area here where there is a bed. I think you can make use of all of these items without the manager getting mad at you, so pretty cool there. It's a good thing to find one of these. It's the only way you'll be able to get semblances. And then we also have a dust shop right around here. It's from dusk till dawn. If you walk on in, we have two NPCs. One of them is the old man. One of them is not actually, I think, a character in the RWBY series, but it does serve as an NPC that sells weapons. So the From Dusk Till Dawn guy, he will sell you dust of any kind, and he will also give you lien in exchange for dust. And those are all of the trades that he has, but this is the only way that I know of, I think, to get lien other than from this person, who also has a trade for lien. They'll give you the different types of iron this way. I don't think it's worth it at all to use 50 lien on these because they are craftable. Very, very simple crafting recipes. So these trades are not very good, but they'll also trade you scrap that might be valuable just so you don't waste any weapon parts. Coco's handbag, very expensive, 6,000 lien, more than the semblance coins. Reese's hoverboard, this one's quite expensive. You need 16 shadow iron and 3,500 lien for Reese's hoverboard, but it is really fun. You can fly around with it. It's very entertaining. We got Nadir's SMG, Katsuhashi's sword. This one's also 6,000. Junior's bat. I feel like that should probably be more expensive. Maybe I'll just kind of steer clear of this trade because it doesn't have ammo necessary to use this weapon. We got Emerald's gun, Magnhild. This is craftable, so a lot of these are already like craftable items. And then this is the last trade, which is Grimm Amalgam, which is an item obtained by killing Grimm, and you'll get 30 lien for it, which is slightly more, well, it's 25 more lien than just trading for dust. However, dust, I think, in the long run is a much more practical way of obtaining lien. And you definitely do have to grind quite a bit to obtain some of these tradable items. Unlike the other structure, I don't know if there's actually... Oh, there is actually items in these chests back here. Wow, that's a lot of impure dust. That's cool. And there's an upstairs. It's very similar in practicality. Is there ice under this? I don't know why I'm moving fast. Interesting. But in any case, that's the dust shop. There's this cool sign on the front of both of them. I think we got a pretty decent view of the crowbar, but just in case, it's using item frames to kind of texture a sign onto the structure. Okay. And I will now demonstrate how these semblances work. If you right-click with one of them, it'll actually consume it, but in creative mode it doesn't. It just keeps it in your inventory. And that means that you have equipped that semblance. The more of these semblance coins you get, the more it kind of levels it up. It'll be able to be used for a lengthier period of time, etc., the more you get of them. But by default, the semblance activation button is G, and as you can see with RWBY semblance, I sort of fly through the air with rose petals and stuff. That kind of bugged out there for a second. Let's go ahead and equip this, make sure we have it. Yep, there we go. But you kind of move in a rose petal burst. I don't think enemies can damage you during that time. It's pretty fun to fly around with. The amount of time that it lasts is somewhat inconsistent, so you have to be careful about when you're using it and not necessarily depend on it as far as your life is concerned. And I think the semblances are actually designed to be fairly inconsistent because it's kind of the way that they are by nature. This is Weiss's semblance. I think depending on your level, it'll summon a different Grimm. But if we press G here, let's make sure. That was working earlier. I think I might still have like a summoned Grimm somewhere in the world, and it's just kind of bugging out. But it will summon Grimm if you use that. Oh wait, there we go. Yep. Summoned Armagigas. Cool. I think the Armagigas is the highest level of Grimm you can summon. And anyway, we have Blake's Semblance as well. This will just kind of summon shadow figures to kind of take the hit for you. They have no AI, they're just kind of a black placeholder player character. Yeah, and you can, I think depending on your level of semblance, have one or more than one. But yeah, the enemies will try to attack these instead of you. Then you got Yang's Semblance, which actually is a bit different. You have to take damage in order to utilize it, but you basically get strength the lower health that you are. And you get different levels of strength depending on your level of semblance and also how damaged you are. The more damage you take, the higher the level of strength. It's actually kind of exploitable. It's very powerful. Yeah, and that's how these semblances work. And I think I've mostly covered all of the bases. So, yes, that's the RWBY mod in a nutshell. I think there's some features that I haven't talked about, but other than that, yeah. And I also wanted to feature the Fervor Fall in the default resource pack instead of the Sapixcraft one that I am using in the RWBY playthrough. And also I don't have shaders enabled right now, so you can see how it would look in normal Minecraft. Basically just a forest biome with red trees that spawns a lot of Grimm in it. And yeah, that's the RWBY mod. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you in another video.